Most of us think of geography as the study of continents, the names of capitals, perhaps the impact of rivers on human cultures. And certainly geography is all of those. But what if its lens could also bring into focus how one's place impacts identity? Joining me today from his home in Phoenix to discuss such questions of geography is Professor Rashad Shabazz, Associate Professor at Arizona State University and author of the book Spatializing Blackness, Architectures of Confinement and Black Masculinity in Chicago. Welcome, Professor Shabazz.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
The Black Belt is an area of, I think 7 miles long, 1 mile wide.
Absolutely.
Largely the place, given restrictive covenants that are going on around this time, that the Black Chicagoans have to live, yes?
Absolutely. It was densely packed, and the way that all of those people were able to fit in that place is also an interesting story. On the South Side, there were numerous apartment complexes and old mansions that had been sort of left over from the aristocracy of the 19th century. And those houses and apartments, or those mansions and apartments, were divided up into smaller units. And these smaller units were known as kitchenettes. And a kitchenette was basically cut up into multiple units to accommodate multiple families. So, for example, a 3-bedroom kitchenette accommodated 4 different families. We see that kitchenettes had a very adverse impact on the production and performance of Black masculinities in Chicago, because what they did was they illustrated to Black men that all of those tenets of masculinity, which were dominant at the time, few of those things were present in the lives of many of these Black men. And then you have this space that is restrictive and small and confining and dirty and expensive and infested with rats and all of these things, right? So what we begin to see is that as a way to negotiate their geographic conditions, Black men began to perform forms of masculinity that enabled them to deal with their material or environmental realities, right? So this meant things like hostility or anger or just simple flight, just leaving, right? Became outward expressions of the inability to ascertain these sort of dominant narratives of patriarchal power. These became mechanisms to construct forms of masculinity against the backdrop of these sort of gender conditions and these environmental conditions at the same time. This book is in many ways an attempt to demonstrate why Black Lives Matter. The entire political point of Black Lives Matter is to illustrate to the entire nation that Black people are dealing with a very specific set of problems that impacts the quality and longevity of their lives. That is the entire point. And Spatializing Blackness is an attempt to do that from a geographic and gender perspective. It's an attempt to catalog how segregation, urban planning, mechanisms of containment produced poverty, health imbalances, and forms of punishment that have devastated Black communities all across the nation.
For Professor Rashad Shabazz, I'm Peter Bermudez for Arlington Public News.